Hey there, Morbid Maniacs! It's time for another spooky video, a part of Vlogtober. And for tonight's spooky video, I'm going to be talking about the real events which took place during the Salem witch trials. Now, this was a request from one of my subscribers, but I had been wanting to make a video on the Salem witch trials for a while now, and I figured this was the perfect opportunity. And before I get into the story, I just wanted to throw a little disclaimer out there and say that I'm only making this video for educational purposes only. I'm not trying to offend anyone in any way. So let's get into the story. Belief in the supernatural and what back then was considered the devil's practice had emerged in Europe as early as the 14th century. Tens of thousands of supposed witches, mainly women, were executed. People believed back then that witches were given the power to harm other people. In 1689, English rulers William and Mary had started a war with France in the American colonies. It ravaged regions of upstate New York, Nova Scotia, and Quebec, sending refugees in the county of Essex and specifically Salem Village in the Massachusetts Bay Colony. Salem Village is present-day Danvers, Massachusetts, and Salem Town became what is now known as Salem. The displaced people created a strain on Salem's resources. In January of 1692, 9-year-old Elizabeth Parris and 11-year-old Abigail Williams, the daughter and niece of Samuel Parris, who was the minister of Salem Village, began having fits, including violent contortions and uncontrollable screaming. Samuel Parris was known in this area to be very set in his rooted ways and a very greedy man. After seeing a local doctor, the two little girls were diagnosed with bewitchment, and not long after, a lot of other girls in the village were starting to show the same symptoms. In late February, arrest warrants were made for Parris's Caribbean slave, Tituba, and two other women, Sarah Good and Sarah Osborne. Sarah was homeless, and Sarah Osborne was poor and elderly. All of these women were accused of bewitching and putting a spell on these girls. The three accused witches were brought into a courtroom where they were questioned by Jonathan Corwin and John Hawthorne. While they stood in the courtroom, the accusers were still acting out spasming and screaming contortions, though Good and Osborne had denied that they had anything to do with it. Tituba had confessed, but it is believed that the only reason why she confessed in the first place was to save herself from certain convictions. She had claimed that there were other witches that had helped her in service of the devil, and all three of these women were arrested. As word had spread throughout the community and throughout the rest of Massachusetts other women were being accused of witchcraft, including Martha Corey and Rebecca Nurse. Both of them were known as members of the church, and so this shocked and scared members of the community. Even Sarah Good's 4-year-old daughter was questioned. Now, I'm sorry, I'm just going to give you guys my personal opinion on this. That is a child, you know, she doesn't know any better, so I think it was kind of ridiculous that they were even like placing blame on children. The questioning got more serious in April, and Deputy Governor Thomas Danforth and his assistants attended the hearing. Dozens of people from Salem and other villages within Massachusetts were brought in for questioning. Several accused witches had confessed, along with others, and the trials had began to overwhelm the justice system. In May of 1692, the new governor of Massachusetts, William Phips, had ordered an establishment of a special court of oyer and terminer to decide on witchcraft cases in Suffolk, Essex, and Middlesex counties. Presided over by judges Hawthorne, Samuel Sewall, and William Stoughton, the court put out its first conviction against Bridget Bishop. Bridget was an older woman and was known for having gossipy habits and promiscuity. When she was asked if she committed witchcraft, she had replied, "I am as innocent as the child unborn." She was found guilty and was hanged 8 days later on June 10th on what would later be known as Gallows Hill in Salem's Town. Cotton Mather had actually warned the court that they needed to take more precautions and that there needed to be more evidence before they convicted people. They were actually convicting people from dreams and visions that they were having, and he was warning them that there needed to be more evidence before they convicted someone over a vision or a dream. The court, however, completely ignored him. 5 more people were hanged that July, 5 in August, and 8 in September. The president of Harvard College and Cotton's father had actually went along with him and agreed that there needed to be more evidence before they had convicted anyone, stating that it would be better that 10 suspected witches may escape than 1 innocent person be condemned. In addition, 7 other accused witches had died in jail, while the elderly Giles Corey, Martha's husband, was pressed to death by stones after he had refused to admit that he was a warlock. After decrease in public support for the trials, Governor Phips had actually dissolved the Court of Oyer and Terminer, which had prevented any more arrests and actually set free a lot of witches which were already in jail. He then replaced it with a Superior Court of Judicature, which disallowed spectral evidence and only condemned 3 out of 56 defendants. But the trials continued intensely until he had released everyone who was accused of witchcraft that were in prison in May of 1693. Following the trials and executions, many people who were involved in the case, including Judge Samuel Sewall, publicly confessed of error and guilt. On January 14, 1697, the General Court had issued a day of soul-searching and fasting for the tragedy which took place in Salem. In 1702, the court declared the trials as unlawful. And in 1711, the colony passed a bill which restored the rights and the names of the people involved, and had actually granted money to their heirs. However, it was not until 1957, more than 250 years after the events had took place, that Massachusetts finally had apologized for the events that took place in 1692. In August of 1992, for the 300th anniversary of the trials, someone of whose name I'm not going to be able to pronounce, dedicated the Witch Trials Memorial in Salem. Also in Salem is the Peabody Essex Museum, which houses the original court documents, and the town's most visited attraction, the Salem Witch Museum, which assisted the public enthrallment with the 1692 hysteria. So that was all I could find on the Salem witch trials. What do you guys think of all of this? I'm going to give you guys my personal opinion. I think that it is straight up bullshit, okay? What happened to these innocent people? They were mainly going off of assumptions. They weren't going off of real evidence proving that these people were witches. And even if they were witches, that does not mean that they were going to harm other people or that they were going to hurt a little small child. Witches are so misunderstood, and that's my personal opinion. And even today, witches are misunderstood. And it just makes me angry that there were so many innocent people, so many innocent women who were wrongly convicted and murdered. Like, it's crazy to me how time can change things, because I myself would probably be hanged or something if this stuff was still going on today, which thankfully it's not. But I do feel very sorry for all the people whose lives that were lost, and you know, they weren't doing anything wrong. I only think that witches are misunderstood. They're not all bad like people say that they are. People just need to educate themselves, really. That's what it is. Let me know what you guys think of all of this, and is there anything that I left out from the witch trials? Feel free to let me know. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please give me a big old thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you have not already, and become a morbid maniac. And one thing before I go, I forgot to say that it's on my bucket list to visit Salem, Massachusetts someday. I would even like to live there if I could. I think that that would be amazing. I will see you guys in my next video.